Welcome to the Co-Host Bros Podcast, where we break down everything short-term rentals, entrepreneurship, and building a profitable hospitality business. Whether you're a host, investor, or property manager, we share real strategies, real insights, and real experiences to help you scale smarter and grow faster. Let's dive in.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 93, You, Me, and Austin on the Co-Host Bros podcast. Sorry, Austin, I want to do something different today just for fun, for shits and giggles. Today, we have Simon S. I'm not going to say his last name. Let him say it for me because we all established I'm going to mess that up, and he's with a company called SweetOp. So welcome, Simon.
Thanks for having me, Austin, Matt. Simon Seroussi, just Simon, whatever works.
Simon Seroussi. I'm starting to think like maybe I should just do the intros from now on, but I just don't think at 93 episodes, like Matt kind of botching the name is kind of part of the process that we do here. So I feel like it wouldn't be the same. I mean, I'm happy to take on that responsibility if needed for the better of the team, but I just think, Matt, I think it's just part of it. You know, you got to go in there.
It's valid. We should ask everybody what they think.
Yeah, maybe
I didn't botch it though. I just said S. So. I mean,
maybe we'll
hit us up on the social media.
We'll take a poll. We'll take a poll and see what people say, and stay tuned for that. But Simon, super grateful that you're taking the time out of your day to come on our show. I've heard a lot of really good things. A lot of previous guests have mentioned you before and what you guys do. I'm not as familiar, but I've heard nothing but good things. So if you want, give us a kind of a brief background on you, how you got into this space, and kind of what it is exactly that you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, really glad to hear that the echo has been positive. I think especially in the space like the short-term rental space, I think your reputation is what matters from other operators all the way to your guests, right? That's always crucial and top of mind. So I've been in this space on and off, but mostly on for the better part of a decade, which I know may be hard to believe. I have a great skincare routine, but I started after school, just around 10 or so years ago after college. Worked at a company called TravelClick. Back then. So TravelClick was a hotel software company. And I'm saying was because we were eventually acquired by Amadeus, which is a giant European travel hotel airlines conglomerate that works on software across many categories. And so I started really working in this space on the hotel side, but very much so in the software side as well. That said, I think it was at an interesting point where the hotel space was changing rapidly. OTAs were growing, eating the market share of hotels that until then were sort of booking direct and were losing a bit of their foothold. And so lots of interesting learnings there that I think we eventually re-experimented and have definitely entered the short-term rental space. Ultimately decided to go on my own. It all sort of happened accidentally, I think, as it happens in many folks in this space. I was living in New York back then, in an overpriced 250 square feet studio, and when I'm originally French, and whenever I'd like go visit my family back home, it was always a bit of a dagger in the heart to leave empty a space that I was paying basically the price of a hotel room on a nightly rate if you were to do the math with how much rent you pay in an expensive city like that. And so I started experimenting with Airbnb, and that was actually, back then already in 2014, 2013, as a pretty early adopter, I would say, in this space, as a way really to share my space with others and to, occupy a space that otherwise would sit empty in a city where there's a lot of travel demand. And that gave me the bug. And from there, wanted to explore how we could scale this from my home a few weeks every quarter to something real. And I remember approaching one of my closest friends and my now co-founder in two companies tell them, let's get into this space as operators. And so we put all our savings together. We bought a home. We bought a home not in New York, but in Philadelphia, because that was the nearest city where we could afford one. And we started doing, effectively starting what was our first vacation rental. The business then grew into what became Philadelphia's largest property management company in the space. We grew to about 400 units. And I would say, the truth of the story is we grew to about 200 units. And as we did, realized there were a lot of gaps, started a different company called SweetOp to answer a lot of our operational challenges and guest experience challenges that we were encountering as we were scaling. And as we sort of stepped away from SoSuite to focus on SweetOp, we hired an incredible CEO at SoSuite, and I've been able to really give the reins to that team that then carried it to what it is today, which almost doubled to 400 units since we've left. So sometimes, stepping away and giving the keys is the best thing you can do to your own business. And we've focused on SweetOp for the last 2 or so years. SweetOp being really a guest operations software that enables operators of all sizes to streamline their operations, streamline their guest experience, and just generally ensure that they can continuously provide a high level quality of hospitality service to their guests, as well as take care of the homes that they operate while scaling, which is always a challenge that I think anyone encounters in this space. And brings us to where we are today, where we work with a lot of excited operators and on the other side of the aisle and more as on the software side.
Awesome, man. That's a lot to unpack in itself right there. So when you had your property management company, you said in Philadelphia, right? That's where you guys, so it was like a metro market for the most
Yep.
part, 200 units. And I didn't catch it. Did you say that you guys still own that, or you sold that? 'Cause you said you handed off the keys to somebody. What did that look like?
Yeah, good question. So we started an urban market, which obviously has its own interesting challenges. And as SweetOp started to take off, it was clear to us that we couldn't give our full attention to both companies, and to ensure that both would have their best chance of succeeding, we found a CEO. Her name is Christy. She came from the space. Both worked in the vacation rental and hotel space. And Christy joined SoSuite about 1.5 years or so ago, and has grown the team since. So today we're on the board of SoSuite. We're still active advisors. We're still involved in the business because the software product that we build is improving SoSuite also every day. But we've given full autonomy to the team to be able to grow the company as they see fit and with its best interest in mind.
That's awesome. So you built this software, and I love it when people come on here and they have been vacation rental managers before, and it led to, because their experience in this industry, it led them to solving a problem that they had in their business. So like from your level, you completely understand what operators are going through every single day. So it sounds like whenever you were building out your software, the beta tester was your own company. Is that kind of how
Yeah,
you?
absolutely. We were as people like to say in tech, we were like dog feeding, the tool daily. It was an amazing way to. We probably had the fastest feedback loop possible. We think about a feature at 8 a.m., develop it at 10, test it, have it battle tested across hundreds of units by 3 or 4 p.m. So it was an incredible way to be able to build things and measure the impact pretty much instantly.
Yeah, I love that. So let's say, break it down very simply for me. It's not a PMS, right? For our listeners, it's not a PMS, but it is a tech product. And what problem do you specifically solve? Like, run me through how you can help me within my business.
Yeah. So really what we focus on is guest operations. So we work with over 30 PMSs today. And what I mean by guest operations is really where a lot of the work tends to begin once the bookings come through. I think, PMSs obviously have changed over the years. They do an incredible job at getting your booking in, ensuring that your availability, your rates, and your inventory are always in order. Once that booking is in, PMSs will help schedule messages. Some of them will create tasks. But orchestrating all of this and ensuring that your teams on the ground, whether it's housekeeping teams, field operations, maintenance, etc., your managers that sometimes mostly sit in a computer may not always be on site or local, and even your executive teams and to some extent your owners are all in sync. And so what that means is ensuring that a guest need, it can be directly addressed by field operations teams without requiring as much back and forth with back office teams. It also ensures, and we solve this obviously in a variety of ways. I think you asked a good question, which is the problem that we solve as opposed to sort of what we do, because there's a lot of different ways to solve a unique problem. I think in our way, like what we've seen is guests in this space, but even in the hotel space, want to have as much independence as they can and want to be able to get a high touch service when they want it and only when they want it. And so SweetOp, as soon as a guest books, we'll be able to share with that guest a fully white labeled, so branded to your brand or your brand's portal. The portal will not only be unique to the property, not only unique to the guest, but also unique to the season, the dates of stay, the type of guest that they are. And that portal will be their one-stop hub for everything that they need on their end. And then any of those needs that are shared throughout the portal, whether it's needing an early check-in, wanting additional services, wanting more information about the property, checking in, checking out, sharing their thoughts, are going to be effectively communicated, but in a consistent software-based way to your teams to ensure that your team can act on the most important things and that the rest gets automated behind the scenes. So our other modules are smart device management, because we quickly realized that locks, thermostats, and other devices in the home can be your best friend as you scale, but they can also be a liability as they sometimes malfunction. They're not perfect. They don't work 100% of the time. So how can we build a ton of redundancy there and connect that to the guest experience to ensure that even if a lock goes offline, even if all hell breaks loose, your guests will have no problem checking in. Things will work regardless of what happens on the hardware and physicality of the space. And then obviously the third module where we focus on is tasks. It's like that third component. Once a guest has a need, how can you ensure that that need is correctly transmitted to the right team member at the right time, scheduled appropriately, and close that feedback loop? So those are the three things we focus on, really: guest experience, smart device management, and ops. But it's that those things aren't, I think historically have often been seen as really separate modules, whereas we see them as together forming what we like to call guest operations.
So it's like you have a guest journey type page, then you have operations to kind of like, I guess, like maybe a Slack type thing and tasks built in one. And then you control smart devices. Do you guys control, like, you have a vast majority of smart devices? Most places that control smart devices, it's not very many.
Yeah, you
guys do a lot of
we're very like hardware agnostic. Our goal is like every company is going to have so many different setups. Sometimes as you scale, you often take over properties from potentially another operator or an owner that put their own devices on there. And so you're left with like different brand types, different device types. What we do is we centralize that to enable your teams to be able to access it easily, to be able to launch workflows across different brands and different devices. Workflows are going to be personalized to each guest, ensuring that the temperature is set to the exact right setting a couple hours before the guest leaves, that even if the auto lock function on the device didn't work when the guest arrived, we still do it post check-in, because we know now when the guest arrives and when they leave, but also be able to use data shared by those devices to personalize the guest experience. So, I think those are little things, but that obviously add up as you focus on being more event-driven in your operation. Think about the fact, like, I think many operators today will send what we like to call it a checkup message, right? Like, hey, how's it going? Hope your check-in was smooth, et cetera, et cetera. And historically, that checkup message is sent on the day of check-in at 6, 7 p.m., right? Whenever it feels right, maybe 8 p.m., sometimes the next morning. The problem with that is it then doesn't take into account the fact that a guest may still be on their way, may have a problem, may have had an issue during their check-in. So with SweetOp, we're going to be able to take all those data points and ensure that, for example, through your PMS or via email or whatever communication channel you decide to choose, as soon as the guest puts in the code that is associated to the reservation, we know that they've now checked in, and we can trigger a variety of events, ensuring that that message gets sent only once they've physically stepped foot through the door, not on a daily basis, so that you're never going to get now a message from a guest saying, I actually haven't arrived yet. Ask me again in 2 hours. So this is a small example, but it's one that compounds as you think about your operation in a really event-driven way.
So the messaging comes from your application?
Not today, no. The messaging comes from either your PMS, and we're going to be able to power that message. We can send emails through our application. And for more technical folks, we can also push webhooks to third-party applications. So if something, and it's, that's basically sort of like the Zapier model, right? If something happens in your operation physically, I want to capture that event in the software and then communicate it to another software. So we have a good partnership, for example, with Conduit, which is a unified inbox that a lot of operators use, especially as they scale. If a guest steps in through the door, we tell Conduit, hey, the guest has checked in, and then Conduit can personalize a message and send that to the guest accordingly. But you can also do something more transactional through your PMS messaging, albeit powered and orchestrated by SweetOp.
So if I had, like, for instance, I had a message scheduled at 8:00 to ask my guests how they checked in, and I was linked up with SweetOp, then SweetOp would go and change the time on that message, or like somehow stop that message from being sent.
SweetOp would basically,
or would the automatic messages be out of the window at that point?
Yeah. So that instead of having a message that's based on a schedule, it would be based on a trigger. So you wouldn't have to create that message based on time. You would create it based on an event. When this happens, send the message. If this never happens, if the guest is never marked as checked in, don't send a message. Maybe send a notification to our team the next morning saying, hey, this guest might be a no-show. You may want to check into that, which is really actually another interesting fact. Like by developing those kind of that kind of structure that's more, again, like event-driven versus like time-based and sort of fixed in time, we learned about a lot of challenges that operators weren't aware about. Like there's actually a good amount of no-show rates in properties. It can be as high as 2% sometimes, depending on where you operate. And you often hear from it a week later once the housekeeper tells you, looks like the bed hasn't been used and nobody's actually checked in. If you're able to know this a couple hours, 12 hours after the check-in time, that potentially is inventory you can free up. Or you can transfer another guest to, or upgrade a guest to, potentially, depending on your setup in new ways as well. So it unlocks a lot of other interesting things.
Interesting. So in your world, everything is based off something happening, the trigger causing something else happening. So tell me how you use that. How examples of how people use that to elevate the guest experience. Like you were saying, like, the guest could come inside and then it could trigger different things. I'm thinking like maybe music, or I'm just assuming, but tell me some examples of how people could do that.
Yeah.
Or what kind of.
So you used the word guest journey earlier, and I think guest journey is an interesting thing because when people think about guest journey in this space, they often think of it as like, a chronological a list of steps that need to happen for the guest to have a good stay, right? Confirmation message, a reminder, check-in instruction, mid-stay message, and then checkout. The way we look at it is guest journeys should represent the more organic natures that stays have today. When you stay at a home and you just book and you get a confirmation message, great, it gives you information. It confirms that things happen, that your booking went through. But if I want to start making requests, if I want to start exploring the home virtually before I arrive and understand what amenities are going to be available to me, all those are things, if I want to personalize my stay a bit ahead of time, all those are things that may not be immediately accessible to me. Why? Because an operator has decided that that's only something you get 24 hours before the stay. when in fact, as soon as a guest books, at least I can speak for myself, but I think many guests feel this way when they travel, they've now anchored their stay physically at your property. And it's a unique opportunity for you to leverage that excitement that they have. Oh, cool, I'm staying there. I can't wait. I'm gonna let my friends that are traveling with me know that we have this house booked now, this apartment. And then leverage that in order to, you want to capitalize on that right now. You don't want to wait a week and a half. So try to gather data on the guest through the guest portal that is sent to them at confirmation. And with that, depending on what they share, offer a more personalized upsell, either via messaging or via the portal. If it's a guest that books a 2 days in advance and is staying for one night, you probably don't even need to show a mid-stay clean inside your portal, because that's not going to be relevant. So it's like hiding the superfluous things and leveraging all that you can then pick up on the guest from events, from forms they enter, etc., to trigger other things. So I think, in one of your other episodes where JJ King was a guest, he had used the example of the reviews. Guest arrives at the property, can tell you how things are in a way that's very consistent, not just a message, but like, how was your check-in experience, 1 to 5 stars, and based on that, trigger events for your teams, whether it's a congratulatory note to the housekeeper or whether it's a warning to the guest experience team that this stay may become complicated and we want to address it ahead of time. So I think it's like, how can you ensure that everything your guest does empowers your team to act and deliver that type of hospitality that can't really be replaced, by missEarly technology at the right time, offers the right services, etc. So there's obviously, we could talk about all the different components of the guest journey that you can drive, but that's the idea.
So, first of all, Matt, did you have a question? Looked like you were starting to get going there, and I kind of.
No. I was just thinking like, you and I are just thinking like, we want those Google reviews, right? That's what we're thinking.
That was going. It's kind of probably pairs into my next question. But first of all, I just want to say, like, shout out to Simon here for at listening to an episode and referencing it, and like, I don't know, I feel like I appreciate that, because he's like, hey, I took the time to go listen to the episode that I was mentioned in. And I don't know, I feel like a lot of people, they come on here and they might BS us and be like, yeah, I like your podcast or whatever. But if they actually listen, I don't know. So that was cool. I appreciate that. My question kind of was, what do you see in your experience that the property managers that you work with, what feature is it that excites them the most, or they like the most, or maybe is like the reason they sign up with you, because like, oh shit, they can do that. Like, obviously you guys do a lot, you solve a lot of problems, is what it sounds like to me. Operational related problems you solve. But what is the one thing you see where maybe managers are like, is there one separate thing where they're like, holy shit, that feature is why I want to on board with them?
Yep. So I'll start with what may sound a bit like a cop out of an answer, but I'll promise you I'll give you an actual example of a feature that's really popular. I think what people really appreciate about SweetOp is that while it gives you a very strong base and foundation to run things in a way that we've run as operators and that we think are like some of the best practices, right? Because I could tell you all day about the personalizing the guest experience, but there are some like things that just need to happen across every operation. The guest needs to be able to get, if you use smart locks, get the code, check in, have no issue doing so, communicate issues to your teams, see information about the property. Like there's sort of a baseline. And obviously that's something that I think we've focused on building the first year and a half really, really well. But what people really love about SweetOp is how they can mold it to work for needs that they either have had for a long time or new needs as they arise. I think often with software, one of the challenges that people have is they sign up, they get a great demo, and then 3 months later, once they're live, they realize, I wish I could do this. Can you do that? And they start submitting tickets, and they start waiting for a roadmap that doesn't necessarily move as fast as they want it to. And like, I think that happens in almost every software experience. I'm not saying that obviously we can do everything. If we were boiling the ocean here, we wouldn't be able to address this. But SweetOp's infrastructure over that like sort of solid foundation that we've built of those 3 modules I mentioned has an entire customizable workflow structure, so that those actions that are like event driven that I mentioned can be taken as you see fit, depending on what's important to you. like if you're in a market where, and that's something you have to recognize, because at the end of the day, like every single operation is different. Like there's baselines, but if you're operating in Philadelphia in an urban market with very low lead times and short stays, that sometimes go from 2 nights, but sometimes we'll get a 16-night stay. It can be very different than a leisure market where people book 3 months in advance, higher ticket reservation amounts, bigger groups. And so there's going to be different concerns that are raised here. And in fact, one of the big revelations as we started, doing SweetOp is like, wow, we thought we knew a lot about the industry, but we know so little. Like there are so many different types of operators out there. And so while we can't build for everyone, we did build a structure that allows people to say, hey, I need to be able to know when this happens, and I need to be able to take action, have an action that is going to let my head of housekeeping know when that particular event happens. And then it's if a last minute reservation is booked at this property and the guest fits this and that criteria, I want to push this particular experience that I think will be a perfect fit, and I want to let my team know as well, so they can take extra care of them. So it's that's sort of like, I think one of the reasons people like SweetOp and love SweetOp is it's hard to outgrow. In terms of like a feature that people really, really love. So the workflows as I described them is definitely one of those, but to talk about something like maybe a bit more concrete is we allow operators to not only create various upsells potentially for their ops, and upsells I think should always stay the internal nomenclature we use. Externally, it's good to talk about it like more as enhancements and upgrades to the stay. But there's always a bit of a where do I get started? How do I start monetizing my stay ahead of other than the accommodation fare? We provide a lot of templates, we have a lot of flexibility, and in general, like our onboarding team even ensures that depending on what you want to achieve, will help you build that out so that you can feel comfortable launching those strategies. So I think what people love with SweetOp is that it's a tool that, thanks to strategies like these, thanks to other parts of the tool, we generate anywhere from 6 to 25 times the cost of the product on a monthly basis. A lot of software ends up being a cost center. Hey, it helps you become more efficient. It does this, does that. SweetOp needs to be a revenue center. It needs to generate a lot more than what it costs you, and that's to us it's an obvious thing, but it's not always the case for software.
So what are a couple examples you see where it becomes kind of a profit center or it generates revenue for your business? Like give me a few things so I can just get my brain turning as an operator. How's it going to maybe pay for itself and then some, kind of like you mentioned?
Yeah. So I mean, I think there's a couple of categories, but for first talking about upsells, it's one thing to say I want to offer early check-ins and late checkouts. It's another thing to execute it. So some homes are going to have different characteristics. Some homes are going to take 4 hours to clean, other will take 2. Some homes will be outside of your op center and operating area and will be much further out. And so with SweetOp, you're going to be able to create different versions of the same upsell with different rules and conditions to ensure that in most instances things will just run automatically. That for a home that takes 5 hours to clean, in which you can never offer an upsell if there's a checkout that day, that the upsell will be displayed at the right time and only if there's no checkout that day and with a particular price that fits the time of the year in which the guest is booking it. Because if you're on low season, you may want to discount it a bit since your occupancy is a bit down. But if you're on high season, you probably want to make that upsell a bit more aggressive because there's going to be a lot of demand for somebody to arrive 6 hours early. So we're going to allow you to like execute these particular upsells in a way that typically is just really not doable. And often people just have like a generic late checkout or early check-in. Guest requests it. They call their housekeeper. Can you do it? Then they change the check-in time on if it's approved. If it's declined, they have to send a message to the guest. With SweetOp, you build a workflow. If this upsell is approved, change the check-in time on the log. Let my housekeeping team know. Update the task. And other potential actions that may be relevant to you. So that is a big revenue generator. Another one is the ability to offer guests alternatives to, say, security deposits. So depending on the OTA in which the guest books, you have more or less protection, right? I mean, if it's Airbnb, air cover is something that many people are able to rely on. If it's a direct booking or booking.com or another OTA, not so much. So there is obviously a lot of options there. The historical one that people have been using have been security deposits. With SweetOp, we allow operators to offer alternatives, like, for example, a damage waiver. And operators can generate pretty significant markups or even keep the entire amount for themselves. So say like Matt, you're booking a home and you're traveling with a family and there's kids and they're you just booked a big home, luxury house. They're telling you ahead of booking you can pick a $500 security deposit, or you can pay for an $80 non-refundable waiver. And if you book that, don't worry, we won't hold you accountable for damages up to a set amount. If you're traveling with family, even if you don't have any negative intent to damage the home, peace of mind is something that you often want. And sometimes that means I don't want to feel worried that a chair might break or my kid might draw on the linen and I'm going to, the host is going to follow up with me for 6 months for $33. I'd rather just pay the $80 and have a great stay and focus on that. So that's one of the many products that you can offer in SweetOp as well that are going to generate, a significant amount of revenue.
Yeah, it's almost like some of these, what I'm thinking about is certain situations that we use in Guesty. And it seems like your product basically is just a layer on top of that to enhance it and make it work even better. Because I'm just thinking about how we offer the discount cadence when the guest is checking in. Okay, now this is available. This night is available after for this discount, and it's not very customizable. It's very stiff and rigid, and it goes out at a certain time. Versus yours is more of like, okay, we can even go even farther and say, if this happens, then this happens, right? So like that's very, very interesting. And I think also with the reviews thing in Guesty, like when we were listening to our podcast with JJ, it's like we got it set up. Something I should have been thinking about, but we got something in place to check the box for now. But it's like in Guesty, you can set it up where they'll leave when their 5-star review happens, then it will send them a text message to the Google link, and it will it's a workaround, right? Like it checks the box, but then like JJ was telling us, I guess yours is even better, where it's like when they're leaving, correct me if I'm wrong, when they're leaving the Airbnb 5-star review, immediately after it goes straight to the Google review if the 5-star review is left, right? So it's almost like it makes your operations even more efficient than what it is. Am I getting kind of grasping the big picture here?
Yeah, I think like the thing with PMS is, and I guess he's an amazing partner of ours, like, is that they have a lot of challenges to solve. And one of those big challenges is ensuring that their connections to OTA is pristine. And so when they're developing features, they have to keep that in mind and do a good job at doing so, which obviously Guesty does really well. But they also need to build to ensure that it fits into a certain mold of OTAs and that it will work across the board. We're able to, and that's, I think that works really well for like the baseline. And then if you like want to drive more customization, being able to like launch your own products, and being able to capitalize on the stay a lot more once a booking has come through, that's when something like SweetOp comes in and allows you to offer more customization, which can, by the way, supplement what you're already doing in Guesty. It doesn't necessarily have to replace it either. Like, for example, like in SweetOp, when we ask a guest, how was your stay towards the end of it, and they say it's a 5-star stay, we push that as a variable to your PMS, right? In this case, we push it as a variable to Guesty so that you can now add another layer to your messaging in Guesty, so that if the guest hasn't left a review on Airbnb, today, you don't really know. You're just going to continue to tell them, hey, please leave a review, please leave a review. What if they actually had a slight issue during their stay, left 4 stars in the checkout survey in the portal? Then you may want to pause, reach out to them, maybe on a more personal level than in a scheduled message, and then see if you can reassure them, maybe offer them a discount on the next day, and then tell them, hey, we'd still love a review and hear your thoughts. Most likely at this point you've made things right, and that'll show in the review. So I think it's in many ways, it's like you can do a lot with a PMS. We allow you to take that further to make it a bit more your own as well, and not have to like fit any particular mold.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Do you find a size like from units perspective where managers are like, hey, this makes more sense at 50 listings per se or 25 listings? Because obviously we all know that at scale, the more units, the more harder it gets to track everything. Like when you're the boutique operator with 5 to 10 listings, obviously you can DIY everything. You're more in tune with what's going on at each listing. You don't need, in my opinion, you don't need something like this. But when you start to scale, these things become harder and harder to track. This is where you need the systems in place. So do you find like there's a certain unit count, let's just call it that, or where it's like, hey, this makes sense for you to start exploring this at operators? Or do you think at 5 listings it makes sense? What's your take on that?
Yeah. So I mean, the what's interesting in the SweetOp ecosystem is there's operators of all sizes. We do really well with people that have hundreds to thousands of listings, and doors, and sometimes a combination of hotels and vacation rentals. But what we've noticed is there's an increasing, I think, trend that's changed, is that, like, it's you don't have to wait to be a certain size in order to implement specific things. If you want to build a solid foundation, it's good to do it early, especially because if you don't, then it actually will hinder your growth, right? You're going to be more focused on capturing those things which, yes, are harder to capture at scale, and making sure to pay all attention to all those things that are harder to do when you have 200 homes versus if you have 10 or 20. But if you have to pay attention to those in a very manual way at 10 or 20, then you're not giving yourself the opportunity to go to 200 either. So, today, SweetUp doesn't really have like unit minimums, or and we kind of welcome everybody because the product has proven to be very useful across the board. Like, we'll have operators with 30 units that are generating, $5,000 to $10,000 a month of ancillary revenue in SweetUp, and sometimes more revenue per door than somebody with 150. So it depends on how to use the tool. It depends on your market. I think we find that it can be valuable to more than just larger operators.
Okay, awesome. No, that was very well explained, and I think that was honestly a great answer. My question now is like, okay, so what is like, let's say, what does onboarding look like? So say I don't know what I want. Like I don't know what I need my handheld. I need to know like, hey, do you guys kind of look at like, hey, this is what some people do. If you're not doing this, we have existing setups that we've put into other management companies. And universally, this feature works well for everyone because my thing is like I wouldn't even know kind of where to start on what we need to fix. So let's say, for example, I'm like, hey, I want to get better at collecting Google reviews, right? So let's set that up first, and then your onboarding guys like, hey, what about this? What about this? So my question here is, I guess, what does onboarding look like with you guys, and how does that go?
Yeah. So our onboarding is like very guided. I mean, we have a lot of in-app onboarding to help you get started and get things set up. But as with any piece of software, questions come up, and I think curious users are going to want to push the limits of like what's possible. But I think also to your point, like they're going to want to learn from others, and that's something that we always do. I mean, just this morning, we received a request from a customer in the UK who wants to optimize part of their upsell and their waiver strategy, and asked us how other successful operators were doing it. So we gave them some examples. We, in this case, even introduced them to someone else in the SweetOp ecosystem that was willing to share more. I think we can all learn. I mean, it's obviously a big market, and those strategies aren't making you, there's no competition really around the strategies. I mean, it's not like if you're able to offer, if more companies do better, the space is overall going to do better. The space is going to have a better reputation amongst guests and just globally. So I think it's a space where people are willing to share, and we definitely try to play our part. So during the onboarding, we'll first guide you to get things set up. We'll then go into deeper, more customized strategy. And what we like to do is like a month later, not just like let you ride in the wind. We like to make sure that a month later, and hopefully throughout the year as well, we connect a few times and not only proactively optimize your account, but also ask you if there's other things you've been thinking about or want to achieve that you haven't been able to yet.
Yeah, I think those are the big questions. I would go in it with like, hey, what are operators doing? What are ways to make us more money, and what are some of the ways that your people are leveraging this to make their operations easier, making their life easier? So those are the two things. But man, that's very interesting stuff. I love it, man. Matt, what do you got?
Yeah. So are you seeing like declines in reviews by sending them to an exit survey first, and then asking them for a review, then asking them for a Google review? Like how is that process like working in general? And then also additionally, because Airbnb doesn't share the email address or the phone number of the person, so can you explain that how that process works?
Yeah, good question. To answer your second question first around like Airbnb and just general like OTA rules or limitations, the portal is configurable so that you can abide by those rules. So you don't, if it's an Airbnb guest, don't require them to enter their email in any way, shape, or form throughout the pre-check-in flow. If a guest wants to share their email with you, that's a different thing. That's a different thing, and Airbnb doesn't prevent that. But what Airbnb does is say, hey, you can't like start emailing the person outside of Airbnb and require them to do so in order for them to actually enjoy their stay. So we'll allow for those types of customizations. The second, and you'd be surprised, like when you offer a really personalized experience, somebody is more than happy to give their email in order to get that to get additional value. As for how if like asking for reviews has the risk of effectively lowering guests' wants to add a review later on because they've already done it, they're like, oh, I need to do it again. I think this is just like good UI and good timing. Think about the fact that like when we ask for how the stay is closer to checkout, it's not really a review. And then it feels like the format of one, but it's not quite a review. It's really more like, is there anything you want to raise with us? Is there anything that you want to tell us to make any future stays better? We just put it in the format of like a review because it's ultimately something that guests recognize and understand. As soon as you enter something there, we copy whatever you might have written to your clipboard, and we automatically deep link you to Airbnb or your Google rating. So if a guest had a great stay and we've copied that feedback, and all they need to do is press leave a review and paste, that's 2 clicks to do so. They don't have to rewrite it. They don't have to go through a whole process again. So if it's an Airbnb guest, we'll redirect them as well, if you'd like to Airbnb, right? Because we know it's important to collect those reviews on the OTAs. And then if the guest had left a 5-star review there, then you can then leverage, if you want, messaging to ensure that a couple of weeks later you tell them, hey, we'd love to see photos of your stay and how it is. Would you mind posting something on Google? So far, what we found is that your overall review rating goes up, and it does not significantly impact your ability to collect reviews in general. We're trying to play obviously within the algorithms of the OTAs, because we know that if you aren't able to capture reviews, then your ranking probably suffers.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering, because it creates like a little more friction giving a survey first. So when you guys are doing your Google reviews, you guys are you're basically scheduling like they left a 5-star review, so like we're gonna send an email 3 weeks later like, hey, saw your 5-star review, paste the 5-star review, and we'd like to see photos of your vacation. If you can post it on our Google whatever, that'd be great. That's something like that?
It could be. I mean,
or is it more instantaneous?
It could be fully instantaneous. While the guest is doing it, it redirects them instantly and pastes it on their clipboard, right? So it tells them, hey, we pasted a review on your clipboard. You can just you've already written it. You can just paste it here to let other guests know how your stay was effectively. So it can happen instantaneously, but to your point, we know that not every guest is going to leave a review, and even if whether or not they complete that sort of survey. And so what happens post booking is really up to you. I think that it's an opportunity, it's like you want to make it a balancing act. You want to make sure that like when you're asking something from a guest, you're providing something as well. And that's, by the way, that's like our entire philosophy across the SweetOp experience is like, if you're asking for the guest to sign a rental agreement or to answer a couple of questions about their stay, make sure that the answers they'll provide to those questions will provide a better stay. Otherwise, don't ask it. Like, you don't need to know if they're here for leisure or business, just so you can put it on a spreadsheet and then make a presentation to your team at the end of the month by saying we have 30% business travelers, or share with your investors, or share with owners. Like, how can you make sure that the guests answering that if they're here for business will provide them with enhancements to their stay that are related to a business traveler? This is the same thing. So it's like, if you're telling them a month later, leave from what you've told us, you've had a great stay. We'd love for you to make that public and share that with other guests. And we also love to see, photos of our guests' vacation. Provide something else. Say like, hey, and by the way, we think that like you'd love to stay at this home the next time around. Here's a link for you to book it, or here's a new home we're launching that we think you'd love. And because you're a returning guest, we'd love to just offer you a complimentary early check-in if you happen to arrive early. And then SweetOp can help you then automate that. If the guest is a returning guest, then make the early check-in free. So it's like a guest is going to be much more willing and happy to share their feedback if they're not just doing it, out of the goodness of their heart, but they're doing it because they see that you care and that you want to continue, that you care about their business, not just in the past, so that you can drive new business in the future, but you care about their business as a long-term customer with you.
It's interesting. Do you guys run data on like how much extra people are making per listing by using your software, or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, we already crossed $1 million a month that people generate with SweetOp a few months back. The cool thing here is like 90% of it is EBITDA, right? Very little of that requires any operational uplift. So it's pure bottom line. And depending on how you operate, whether you charge cleaning fees to owners or how those charge, et cetera, some of that can also be shared with owners, right? Depending on if the upsell was related to the home or wasn't, or was an ancillary service. So, there's definitely a big owner retention component, I think, that isn't part of SweetOp's features, but that ends up being a consequence of it. Based on the data that we run, like SweetOp should generate, and this is a broad strokes, but anywhere from $50 to $150 of ancillary revenue a month per listing. The reason why this is broad is because obviously if you have, $100 a night cabins in the woods versus $700 a night homes, the travelers' budgets and services that you can sell are going to be very different. We have some folks that are generating as much as $300-400 a month per unit, and some as little as 20 or 30. But on either side of the spectrum, SweetOp pays for itself multiple times over.
So, like pricing structure wise, are you guys charging like a monthly rate or annual subscription, some kind of percentage? And also, are you charging a percentage on the upsells that I would sell through your software?
Yeah, we charge fixed listing fees. Our pricing is quite straightforward as you grow in listing. So every listing you add, you don't need to necessarily hit a milestone. Quite literally, every home that you add lowers your blended rate per listing by a few cents every single time. And the idea here is like, if you're growing, we want to share in those successes with you. And we want to help you become leaner as a company because we know that growth is hard. In terms of percentages, no. I mean, a couple of operators occasionally that have very seasonal businesses prefer a percentage model because it just makes more sense to them. So we offer that flexibility to our operators. Again, SweetOp is based on the fact that everyone operates differently, and so we don't want to like box you in. But we don't, because we don't think you should tip your software provider. Like we think that we should provide a lot of value that is easily measurable. And if we're starting to take like, $10 here and $5 there and 6% here, like it's very opaque. Where is that money coming from? Is it coming at the source? Is it coming from the guests? Coming from where is it coming from? And two, I think it leads to an uncertainty around how much SweetOp is actually making me. We've had people come from other, sometimes providers, thinking they were crushing it there, and then realizing that they were paying the same as what they were making. So that's definitely an important part of how we operate.
So then, when somebody buys late check-in or early check-in, or late checkout, so who's the merchant of record at that point? Is it you guys, or is it like my Stripe account or something?
Yeah, it can be any number of things. So it can be Airbnb. because we know that Airbnb, when possible, likes the transaction to happen there. So we can deep link the guest to the resolution center and make it extremely easy for them to process the transaction directly on the resolution center in Airbnb. It can be your Stripe account. It can be other payment providers. We integrate with some specialized ones, like even we integrate with, we mentioned Guesty earlier. We have a great integration to Guesty Pay. Guesty users love Guesty Pay, and we wanted to extend that to SweetOp as well. And then, a bit of a scoop here, but in a couple of weeks, we'll be integrated to probably over another 100 plus payment providers, from Aiden to others, big ones and smaller local ones. Because as we scaled, we realized that customers weren't able to access Stripe everywhere in the world. As global as it is, if you're an operator in Indonesia today, you're on a wait list to be able to use Stripe, for example. So we wanted to make sure everybody could benefit from those features. So no, it's typically your Stripe account. In fact, it's your Stripe accounts, because you may have multiple LSCs, multiple companies, multiple accounts, maybe upsells go to different accounts depending on the upsell as well. We know that like your accounting may work in a unique way there. So we offer you pretty much all the flexibility.
It seems like everything you guys do has flexibility in it. Didn't really seem like, I was surprised when you said all these payment processors. So that's pretty interesting. Wow. So how many customers do you guys currently have?
We have over 260 operators. I think we're closer to like 300 operators on the platform today, ranging from a couple of thousand units to one.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So the guy that has one listing, they're just all in on making sure that one listing is perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, if they're thinking that way.
Yeah. Who sold him? No, I'm just kidding.
The commission, is big on
it's fun because like if SweetOp February 2025 was my co-founder Jean Manuel, myself, and then our head of onboarding Ali. And then we had 2 team members offshore that helped with onboarding as well. Today, the team in New York is 11 people. What you just said is making me crack up, because the first year and a half, I must have done 50 demos with operators that had 1 units. And somebody might be like, what the fuck are you doing, Simon? Like this doesn't scale. And they're right. But I think at like that stage, you need to do things that don't scale. If you don't, then while you're closing off yourself to so much feedback. I mean, I've got like incredible feature ideas and referrals to then the 100-unit operator that they know by folks with one door that just care about the one home they own, usually, right? I mean, when you operate one home, sometimes you usually are the owner of said home, not always. But if you care and you want to make sure that every single part of the guest experience is going to be dialed in, that when something wrong happens because you care about every stay, like SweetOp gives you that ability in a way that I don't think many things can.
So how long have you guys been around again? You mentioned a year, but I blanked out when you said it.
We started the company about 2.5 years ago.
Okay, that's some pretty good traction and momentum, man, for sure.
Yep. Well, the first year was all about my co-founder and I. Just first 6 months was him and I in the trenches. Then we hired Ali. She was instrumental when I realized I couldn't sell, help with the product on board, and do customer support on my own anymore. But we stayed as a small team of 3 for a while. Not because we needed to, but because we thought that was the right thing to do to build the best product before scaling.
Yeah. So my question also is like with a team of 11 people, how demanding, how is like the customer support with that? Like say like, hey, I'm trying to figure this out. I pay you guys. I love the features, but I'm trying to add this feature. I can't figure out the software. How do I do it? What's that look like? Run me through kind of y'all's tech support and stuff, because I know like it's obviously in the beginning stages. So I don't want to put you on the spot here, but that's always a lot of big complaints about people. They're like, hey, the software was great. We went through the whole demo. Everything's on board. But every time I need help, it takes them a few weeks to get back to me. And I mean, that's just a common complaint, right? So what's that look like? Working through it? Like you can be transparent,
Yeah, I will. We started with things that didn't scale. So we started like providing, support in under a minute for everyone. We started with things that didn't scale and then managed to scale them. We started offering support through Slack. A lot of our users were using Slack, and we were like, why not invite them on a Slack channel, and they have a question. They're already messaging their housekeepers on there. Let them message us. Let their housekeepers message us directly. That gave us a big edge because we weren't just speaking to like the owners of the company anymore that were submitting, feature requests. We were speaking with their housekeepers that were having potentially an issue or a bug. And that's an amazing way to have completely cut a middleman and be able to fix something with someone that's right on the field. So a lot of our support is through Slack. A lot of our support is through like a chat widget inside the app, email. We'll jump on a call anytime. Like, we're not the kind of people that are going to say like, hey, you need to jump on another support call with us. Like, it's going to be $50 or $100, $200. But I think to your point, like as we definitely reached inflection points, and that happened a little bit at the end of last year, between October, November, and actually about a month ago, we got so much momentum that the team was having a hard time providing the same level of individual access and support to every customer. And we noticed this. We noticed that we planned for it by looking to hire someone, but we really are like pretty intense about our hiring process. And so it took us 3 to 4 months to find the right person. They joined about a month ago, and things have been like much smoother since. So I think there's, in every company's life cycle, there are moments where you may gain or lose momentum, and you're gonna have to like react quickly on your feet. For about 60 days, we went from like, you have the best support I've ever experienced in software, to where we had set very high bars and expectations, to like, you haven't answered me in 24 hours or 48 hours. What the hell is going on? And I think like setting up the bar really high is not something I regret. It's just something that you then have to like keep up with. And so one thing we do, to go back to your question about onboarding, is like, we put a very strong accent on onboarding. It's a big cost at the beginning for us, but it's one that we're willing to do because we found that somebody who is well onboarded on SweetOp will have little to no questions a year in. And it's also a customer that is happy, that loves the product, that will really reach out to thank us or share ideas rather than to complain about anything. So yeah, it's definitely like we've definitely experienced growing pains, and we just had to think on our feet to be able to address them.
Man,
I think that's the hardest part. Like, when you grow and then you have to, like, same thing as, you start co-hosting or managing more properties, and then you have to figure out how to fix that, provide that same level of service, right? I mean, that's the problem. I've onboarded with software companies where I'm just like, fuck, I didn't learn nothing.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, they just pretty much sitting there clicking all the buttons for me, and they're like, okay, that's what you do. And I'm like, this something would happen. And I'm like, okay. And it's like, oh, look through these help files. And I'm like, okay, but I don't understand the guy in the video because he has a thick accent. There's no subtitles. Like just like stupid things. I'm like, well, okay, I wish this guy would record the video because I know what he's saying. The other guy, I don't really know what he's saying.
Yep.
Like, makes it difficult, a little more challenging.
100%. I think
I do find myself.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're good. I find myself reaching out more in that case. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
for sure.
For sure. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think it's like, it pays dividends to do it right the first time. Like, I think it's funny because like the support process, the onboarding process, like you're also building a relationship with your client. And we're like in hospitality. Yes, we're selling software that makes you more efficient, that makes you more money, that streamlines things as you scale. But like, it's software that takes time to set up. We know about that. It's not just beep, beep, boop, 2-3 clicks, and then things are done. It's a time set up for you. There's like different levels to it. And so like, we want you to be able to be super successful from the get-go. And that means spending that time, right then and there. I think, whenever we had to cut any steps in our onboarding process, we felt it 3 months later. And I think it's a perfect metaphor for the short-term rental space, to your point. Like, it's like you have more guests, you have more owners, things fall through the cracks. What software are you going to use to stay on top of those things? What methods are you going to use while still staying human, right? While still providing that hospitality. that's what we need to do as a software provider, and that's what we hopefully help operators do day to day as well in their ops.
Yeah, it sounds like a challenge for sure. It does. Okay, well, Simon, thank you, man. I appreciate it. It's been a while. I know you got things to do. You're a busy software owner. Go ahead and tell everybody like where they can find you, find SweetOp, and all those things.
Yeah, absolutely.
All the good things.
Absolutely. I mean, check us out on SweetOp.com. It's SUITOP. We probably connect with the PMS you use. If you don't use a PMS, we can connect through Airbnb if that's all you use as a channel as well. But schedule a demo. Like even if you're 5-6 units and you're getting started, you'll be welcome to schedule a demo. You're not going to have to go through 16 forms to do that. You fill in one form, you select some time, we meet you in a couple of days, and we walk you through the software. So happy to do so. And if you want to just talk shop and talk short-term rental, hospitality, and vacation rentals, shoot me a message on LinkedIn or email, simon@sweetop.com.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. And if you guys do set up a demo, tell them that you heard it from here, so that way he can keep track of who comes from here. But it sounds like what you're doing is, the name of the game is to squeeze blood out of a turnip. I think it's the way I look at it. I like to try to make money in every angle I can when it comes to a property. So and I think that's what you guys do.
We're gonna get you guys on a demo next week.
We should have just scheduled a demo instead of a podcast. No, I'm just kidding. Awesome, Simon. Well, thanks a lot, man. I appreciate it. And with that, I'll let Austin ring it out.
All right. Thank y'all for listening. Peace.